Sorry. Anything? We really need to get you a Turner shirt. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Construction Technology Podcast. I'm Luigi with Provision. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Andrew from Join and Mike from Build Vision. We're joined by Elon. So Elon is the founder of Kamai, construction MCP API endpoint that does takeoffs. I'm sure more than that, Elon. I'm sorry. I don't mean to not do it justice, but I'll pass it off to Mike, who will introduce Elon, and then we'll get started.
Luigi, the fact that you doubt that I still have my Turner hard hat. My parents still have it.
Are your Turner shirts framed? Or are they just in your
Turner shirts framed. My mom probably has them framed somewhere. I wouldn't have no doubt. Just like my diploma that she put in a massive thing that I still at the house. But anyways, yeah, excited to have you on today. I know we had a really good conversation on Monday about doing some takeoffs for mechanical systems. Obviously, you guys do a lot more than that. Really just liked our conversation and your thought process around your position around where foundation models are going to go, how aggressive they're going to grow. So yeah, would love to have you do a quick intro of yourself. Tell us a little bit about your company. Tell us about your background. We'll get you into space, and then we'll definitely dive in.
Awesome. So my name is Elan. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Kamai. Me and my co-founder Ben started Kamai almost 2 years ago. And really, our backgrounds are from the military and government positions. Me and my co-founder, both Israelis, both served in the army, both served in government positions doing most cybersecurity. My personal background is I was a communication officer in the army for the air defense battalions, and Ben was more of a Air Force cybersecurity department over there. Our backgrounds are technology completely, nothing related to construction. Other than our relatives who were doing real estate, and that's how we got into it. They essentially told us, guys, so many problems are in real estate, so many problems are in construction specifically. We have a lot of relatives who are GCs, and yeah, this is how we got sucked into it. Got lost in the way from cybersecurity towards construction.
I love it. Why are there so many good founders that come out of the Israeli military? Like, is it a special potion that you drink? Is it a process? I just feel like the cybersecurity market is obviously dominated by Israeli founders. Curious, like, there's obviously a lot of really good construction tech company founders that have come out of Israel as well. What's the secret sauce?
Well, when you're back against the wall, you don't have anything else to do. Right. And the worst enemy of plan A is plan B. I think scarcity and not having enough resources. If I compare, for example, Israel to America, right? You have infinite money. We don't. So we just need to figure things out. And this is how we essentially dominate across many, many fields. Not a lot of people. We're, numbers wise and money wise, not a lot, but we are very determined to win and do stuff. That's the culture, essentially.
Love it.
And also from a financial perspective and geopolitical perspective, we don't have, like, as a state, as a nation, we don't have really enough resources. And like 80% or 90% of our export is really about technology. So we don't have commodities like oil or energy or anything like that. We just export technology.
Very cool. I love it. Yeah. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you today, kind of like the big news. So there's kind of two big news stories this week in construction and also in LLMs in general. I want to start kind of on the LLM side. So there's always been a lot of traffic and conversation around like open weights, closed weights. You had a really good position that we kind of chatted through on Monday about like your thoughts on foundation models. I would love to give you kind of get your thoughts and opinions on like this conversation matters to us as technology providers, but does the customer actually care if the model's open weight, closed weights? Like, what are your thoughts on that, and how are you positioning that to customers?
Customers don't really care about open or closed or whatever. Essentially, they're all cost money. If it's open or closed, someone has to pay the cloud bill, right? To run, for example, this Kimi K3 that recently was launched, you would need like a huge cluster, essentially, to run it over and make good inference. Not only that, you would need to also manage inference. From a tech perspective, it's not as easy as it sounds, right? So if you have Claude on your phone or on your computer, a lot of things are in the background running besides the actual model. So for a vendor who needs, for a service provider like a construction company or an estimator or an engineer, you're essentially paying for output, for outcome, not for the actual, like, you don't care what's going on inside and behind the scenes. So I don't think it really matters. Matter of fact, we are, of course, every software company codes with Claude Code, and unless you're doing specific classified work that you cannot really share your information outside of your closed environment, you would never be using open weights models because they're just not as good as the closed weights.
Interesting. So are you not seeing? So have you like done any testing with I know we're kind of going down a rabbit hole, like with Kimi 3's coding model, that you think it's not as consistent as like Opus or Fable or Soul?
I actually haven't tried Kimi K3.
Kimi?
Yeah, Kimi came out. Well, the latest model was very recent. Yeah, it was like
Okay.
3 weeks ago. It was only Frontier on front end, so it's not like it was Frontier and any other like terminal bench. It wasn't.
I tried the Kimi 2.4, I think, models, and they were just not as good as the as Opus.
Yeah, it's Kimi 3,
yeah.
which made a huge leap.
I'll be definitely checking it out.
I think irrespective, it's like the customers clearly don't care. It will benefit them though, right? Because if someone who's going to avoid paying margin to OpenAI and Claude is just, yeah, you're right. They're going to be paying for compute still. Like they'll have GPUs or whatever. They're going to have to pay for those things, but it's great. Like I think it's fantastic. I would love more open weight models that allow me to diversify beyond OpenAI and Claude and Google. That'd be great. I still think like each model's still very good though.
Yeah, definitely. I think generally speaking, the open source race is really advancing everybody together, right? If OpenAI or Clouds are lobbying the AI market right now, presumably, if you release an open source model, it is much better than their closed source model. It just incentivizes them to release more and more and better models and doing more stuff, right? So it's just an accelerator to the market. This is my personal opinion about it. So more research, more open source stuff will just advance the industry in general.
I think one funny data point was obviously like Anthropic's like raising their hand saying they distilled on our model, but didn't Anthropic distill on the internet / all the books that they've kind of illegally processed? And it just seems like it's like another step down in the journey. One interesting comparison I heard, which I don't know how real, which I made, so it probably is a bad comparison. Is it illegal for someone to try to match the flavor profile of Coca-Cola by doing the chemical compounds and doing distillation of chemicals out of Coca-Cola? It would be illegal for them to say, hey, here's our Coca-Cola brand and here's our logo. That's trademarkable and IPable. But is the actual output taste it trademarkable and IPable? And it seems like weights are kind of like a taste in that sense.
But it might be it's probably in the terms of service, right? Like
Yeah,
we have in our
that's what it
terms of
comes down
service,
to.
like you're not going to reverse engineer our products based on using it. And like you have to agree to that to get in. So it's not like, it seems like it would be a civil thing, not a criminal thing, but
It's clearly a terms of service issue at least with Claude and Moonshot AI. But Elon, like for Kamai, obviously, I don't know the pricing, but I've spent some time on the website. It's very impressive. I'd love to get into some of the accuracy and to what degree takeoffs have not been solved. But it sounds like, hey, upload your drawings. You can get full quantities. So like objects, linear lengths, areas, object counts, maybe volumes. I'm not sure. But that's
before he goes into that, I would love to like applaud him on also having like the idea of an open API and it's literally self startup or self starting in the application. So I talked to Elon.
You guys didn't go in. I got a key. I got a bunch of drawings.
As I was saying, I talked to Elan just because I was like interested in chatting with him, and then I went off and like literally embedded it in our application. Tried the entire process. It was super fast. He has a really really cool way of like kind of capturing geometric shape and then finding those replications across the application. So I'd love like applaud you on that, because I think a lot of their like specifically Takeoff founders have like buried this like, hey, we have this like super secret sauce that no one's allowed to use. Yes, but I'd love to kind of have you like talk through like, hey, like what was your thought around your go-to-market motion? Why did you decide to like lean into the open API first, and you're kind of embedding the iframe in the application? I'd love to kind of unpack that.
It's a great question. Well, I guess a year ago, pretty much, we saw, even before we started the company, we saw the other competitors in that space and what they're doing. Everybody's trying to sell their own products and force users essentially to go on their platform and use their platform to do stuff. Now, specifically in construction, people are not that tolerant towards software, right? It's a physical world. They're dealing with physical things, and the one thing they hate is touching software. But they have to, right? They have to manage their invoices. They have to manage their staff. They have to do takeoffs. They have to place bids. They have to answer emails. So it's unavoidable. So how can we make it from a product perspective as easy as possible for them? And this is like the big AI LLM revolution that has been going around here, which is you can speak to the machine and the machine understands you, right? You can tell the computer, hey, I want this and that, and it actually does it. So that's the big leap that is currently happening, and it's fascinating. It's amazing. You can tell it started even way before that with Siri, for example. Siri play music, Siri call someone, and it's actually doing it, right? The LLM part and the actual more intelligent layer is an enhancement to it. So where I saw Kamai is really we can deterministically answer a specific question that is a pain in the ass for those construction companies, right? They want to know the exact measurement and the exact counts of, for example, walls, doors, rooms, to make their estimates and place their bids. So how do you make it? Our go-to-market was really, okay, we can make a product and essentially have a funnel, B2B funnel, where we just schedule a bunch of calls with a bunch of customers, and we have a close rate, and this is how we grow, which is pretty standard. But if we are developing AI models, which we do, and we develop niche and specific AI models for this specific industry, how do we make it how do we make the most progress plus the most profit in the shortest period of time, right? And we figured, okay, we can do that with other software companies. So we literally we're developing our models and our ways to interact with other softwares. And this is how we got started. This is how we got great design partners to partner up with. And we got access to real user feedback on a scale. And right now we operate on a scale of 4,000 something users that are using our software, and it's been pretty amazing about it. And the adoption also, actually, I had a conversation with a client yesterday. He bought 10 pages on my website and then realized he needs more. So he bought the bigger subscription and he started using it through cloud. We've opened our MCP, and in our MCP, we've also released yesterday a beta version of a user interface. So essentially, Kamai lives inside your cloud. Kamai is also released on OpenAI. Kamai also lives in your OpenAI ChatGPT interface. So once you plug in Kamai into your ChatGPT or Claude, you can just ask, hey, what's going on in my project? Bam, you get accurate information. You get the actual print. We get the actual markups. And yeah, this is like from a go-to-market perspective. We are not forcing our users to use our platform. We do have a pretty cool platform. It's pretty refined and nice to use, but we're not forcing you to do anything. If you use Claude or OpenAI, or I got an email from Autodesk. They released their MCP connectors as well to allow you to upload your MCP onto their website. If you're using any of those platforms, we easily can integrate within, and that's our growth tactic so far.
Yeah. I think it's again, I'm like a super fan of what you're doing. And I think it's you're still underselling that entire, there's so many things that you can do with the tool out of the box right now. And I know you've had really, really good experience, not just on selling to software companies, but also selling to general contractors and helping them set up hey, you already have a Claude subscription. You already have an OpenAI subscription. When you need to do something that Claude can't do or OpenAI can't do, just ping into this API, this MCP, and validate, get the accurate, here's the actual dimension of the wall because it's a geometric model as opposed to an LLM. When you talk to customers, how do you bifurcate those conversations? Are you very much hey, LLMs are really good at X, Y, and Z. We're really good at ABC, and how do you kind of educate the customer market on that? Since there's obviously so much noise right now in the space of, hey, my proprietary model is the best thing in the world, or you can do it in OpenAI. I'd love to kind of hear how you think about that.
So LLMs are, large language models. They're mostly based around language. The models that usually people are using are Claude or ChatGPT or Grok or any of those kind of models are also vision, also language, also a bunch of other tools that they incorporate behind the scenes. For example, if you use Gemini, behind the scenes, they use Document AI, which is one of their cloud services to analyze documents. Now, they do have a scale of how deep they parse your documents, and you can also adjust it. But essentially, it's LLMs that can interpret user commands and instructions towards using other tools. This is what is going on behind the scenes. You can think of Kamai as one of those tools, right? If you have an intelligence layer that is exponentially growing and getting better and better, like Kimi, Opus 5, Fable 5, maybe Fable 6 in a few months, right? This is awesome. This is great. But you would need, from a construction perspective, deterministic output. You would need to know the exact measurements of, for example, you're ordering doors, right? You would need to know the exact width of a door in order to actually put it inside the frame. Otherwise, you're wasting millions. You can't really afford a mistake here. So this is where we come in. We give you exact measurements, and this is what the user wants. They don't really need another wrapper or another interface or another software that they need to go to. They just want the answers and fast.
But then I agree on people wanting the answers fast. But as a proud developer of workflow software, I feel compelled to defend our honor, even if I'm totally wrong. You need to do something. Like, there's a few things. You need to be able to do something with the answers. Often you need to be able to understand the answers, and then you have to be able to correct them, right? Like, you have to be able to go in there and understand what they look like and correct them and so forth. And so doesn't that point to like quite a bit of, like, it's not just like chat in, chat out. Like, I need something that lets me go in and interrogate the interpretation of the drawings. And then I guess maybe this is where you're saying the things like the Autodesk MCP servers allow you to push the data into whatever the downstream like tool or workflow is.
Yeah, so this is exactly why we partner with software vendors. And plus we have our own product, which is for Takeoff specifically. So you can visualize and link the actual data towards what's going on the plant. And you can validate and adjust the parameters. This is also what I said about the MCP UI. So MCP allows you to also incorporate a user interface inside your chat thread. And I can maybe show it a little later how it looks like right now in the beta version. But essentially, when you ask Kamai, hey, what's going on in my project, and show me the markups and everything else, and the measurements, it will actually pop you up like a pop-up inside your thread and show you, okay, this is the blueprint, those are the markups, this is what you're referring to. Then you can validate, say yes, no, adjust, and so on. So you have visual validation of information. And the point is, for example, in coding, if we go back in time, Andrew, as a proud software vendor, you tried obviously ChatGPT and Claude back in the day when it was just released, right? You're writing code and then you're checking up and checking things, and if they're working, if it wrote it correctly, and so on and so on. You still do it now, but you do it way less, right? Because you trust it more, because it actually performs and gets you the right answer. I haven't been, or any developer on my team, we're just not writing code anymore. We're speaking to Claude, and we're validating, okay, this can go to production, but the way to go to the time to POC and the time to production has decreased significantly. And this is because the models are getting better and better exponentially. So this is what we are betting on. Once users are trusting enough in the system, they can always check it's fine. And they should. Again, it's millions on the line, right? But this is where we're aiming to. A one-shot takeoff, a one-shot way of a user to actually query our API. Hey, I need information about this blueprint, about this project. Bam, you get it. What you do with it later, it's fine. You can use our software. You can use ChatGPT. You can use Claude. You can use Build Vision for that matter. You can use any other tool for your specific niche, because we're building a very low layer of information. And then you would need to build up vertically your workflows. For Build Vision, for example, I spoke with Mike on Monday, and he's doing a software essentially for vendors who sell mechanical equipment. Right, Mike? And they need a certain specific piece of information from my software. For example, the mechanical takeoffs, and other vendors who are doing invoices or purchase orders, their software is all about that. They need another thing. So everybody takes a little piece and utilizes it and amplifies it in their software. So this is like the end product.
You want to show it? You can show my account if you want. If you want to just like walk through, I think a visual is super helpful for this. I think the coolest thing was like, again, the fact that like it instantaneously set up, like it instantaneously runs. There's no like pre-training that needs to be done. He also like, they have not spent any time on mechanical systems. So this was kind of like a net new exposure. He's done a lot of like doors. Right? So we kind of just like went in raw and said, hey, like, let's see how close this is. So kind of just like setting that expectation.
This was Mike with work that you already had an eval that you were testing this against?
So what's interesting about it is like one of the challenges that we have is like LLMs are good at like reading the tags. Actually, we can pull it, like reading the tags on a mechanical drawing, but getting the exact location of like the grill register diffusers is challenging for LLM, like with bounding boxes. So we were able to just like say, hey, like look for this specific shape, and it recognizes it pretty quickly, within the 10 seconds on all the drawings, and counts all of those shapes automatically for us. So in our world, we're like, hey, we're using an LLM. We're able to like find what we need on the drawings. We have context around what we need. And this is that step of like, all right, now let's actually make a perfect bounding box on the piece of equipment. So the user knows exactly where it is on the drawing. It can trust but verify it. And the ease of use of like, if something is missed, actually, I'll just show you because it's like, you go to, if something is missed, of course, it's not going to let me share. Riverside does not let me share. Elon, can you, it's going to kick me out. I'll be right back.
Sure.
BRB.
Maybe while Mike's getting that out, Elon, how does Kamai think about accuracy? Is it, is it like overlapping area? Like, is it MAPE? Like, how do you think about it, and how do you guys perform relative to benchmarks?
So there are not that many benchmarks out there, simply because to benchmark it correctly, you would need actual ground truth, and no one has actually released an accurate ground truth on actual production documents. I haven't seen anything that is like remotely close to what we are benchmarking against in our own evals.
Coincidentally, last week we had someone on for handoff, Dmitry Alexin. They just published a takeoff benchmark. Apparently, it's called Takeoff Bench, but that's, I think, a week old.
Awesome.
Yeah,
a week old is already old enough. But yeah, maybe it's something recent. I'll definitely check it out. We are going to release open source also our own benchmarks to actually look and compare other softwares against ours. Not only ChatGPT, but also our competition, right? There are just a few companies that are doing that stuff, and we're already performing much better than they do. Oh, Mike, you're presenting my product? That's awesome.
Sorry about that. It's just brutal movement. All right, cool. Let me share this real quick. So what I thought was really, really powerful. You guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
So what's like really, really powerful about this? It should go into other one. This is fine. So if I go in and say like, let me find all of, what have I not done yet? These E1s. So for Build Vision, we already have all like the context beforehand of this. So like we know that there's E1s on the drawing. We know there's how many there are in the drawings. We still are not able to grab the shape of the E1. So I can actually come in here and we're looking at ways to just automate this. And it's going to actually go find all of these shapes.
You can zoom in if you want to. Yeah.
And like pretty quickly, see if it is right. Pretty quickly goes and finds all of those on the drawing in the exact location of where they are. So like that's like the big unlock for us is the accuracy around the location. So you can see here, yeah, grab these two right there and tag those. So now we have the exact location of the drawing of where those boxes are. Because on an engineer set of drawings, like we have all this information already. So we have what the shape looks like. I can feed that in automatically. We have how many there are. And our value is like, hey, can we actually do that? And you can see that, like, I don't really care about like the linear feet of this pipe, but it's an easy capture of actually going to find the linear feet of this pipe because they've like done walls and doors and frames and hardware. So like, hey, I'm any type of construction tech company or any type of user, and I need to go get like linear takeoff. It's like as accurate as it can be because it's not like guessing numbers. It's not using an LM. It's literally like measuring a line pixel by pixel in the drawing set.
Well, not pixel by pixel.
Not pixel, yeah.
As you said, geometrical models are a little different. There is not much research about it. I think we're perhaps the only company in the world that is doing actual production for those kind of models. It's a kind of novel approach towards this problem, and inherently, CAD drawings are geometries, right? Somebody wrote it in a software, and you have the precise properties of the vector graphics in that. So our models we trained pretty big models on predicting geometric properties in order to predict the actual shape. And it comes down to, Luigi, you asked about accuracy. In our world, it's like, it's a binary world. It's a 0-1. Is it true or not? There is no in the middle, Andrew. Yeah.
As Mike, can you pull back up the same thing we were just looking at?
Yeah. This share screen is brutal on Riverside. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, fuck Riverside. I mean, I love you, Riverside. Stop making me.
I just can't like, you guys go into this like weird box that's like vertical every time I hit share screen, so I can't see you guys. Yeah.
Okay, so I can't draw on this, but this just has me curious. I'd love to trace through like how a geometrical model handles this differently and improves. Can you put back on the objects that you found? Like make the E175 thing appear? Because it missed one. Like there's the two up there that it had.
One thing it's looking for. So here's an example.
Yeah,
like,
that's one it missed.
It's looking for this exact shape. So you can see that like, hey, like this is actually a different shape, this one down here.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
that's why
mark it up, show it.
yeah, so do this.
No, not that one.
The other one?
Yeah. Mark the other E175.
So my understanding is that
As you
more
can see,
traditional pixel-based like object detection and classifier like would be reasonably likely to say like, okay, yeah, I got E1 and I got 75 and I got like most of this shape. Like, yeah, pretty good. Seems like I found it here.
you don't need to mark up as many path vectors as you did right now. You can just pick a few, but the fewer you pick, the less accurate it will be because it's not as unique. So the reason it found this specific shape, if you zoom in on it, as you can see, the actual author, he did not include the other vector underneath. This other vector is a part of the pipe or the wall, which is not captured in the analysis.
Maybe where Andrew's going with this is, so like this looks like this is a workflow in a way. Maybe there's like via MCP, it's here are all the items, which ones do you want? But relative to what a human estimator would do if they spent 2 weeks on this, like how well do you perform? Because I'm sure you have your own internal benchmarks.
So in terms of the geometric models, there, as I said, it's a binary thing. It's a yes or a no. Essentially, is there a pattern match in between this shape and the other shape?
Now that I understand, but it's like kind of sidesteps the question, right? Like, if a human captures 100% of these E1s, how many does Kamai capture? And like, you're gonna have like, it's not, you've chosen to use geometrical models or however you've done this, right? But there has to be some relative performance, irrespective of the model that you've chosen, because that's what the customer cares about, right? They're like, how many did you find? How many did I find?
The geometrical models are 100% accurate, or 99.9% in our benchmarks. The only things that can make it not accurate is inherent geometry that can be different, that the architect may be placed. What this E1 this is a great example for in that perspective. You have this E1 and it's the same grill as the other E1, but it's actually missing a vector, which makes it different completely to our model to predict. So in those cases, it will not predict as well, but otherwise it will predict and find everything else. So for example,
the way that we're thinking about it is like it's the merge of the two between an LLM and this. And that's like the checkpoint, because like the LLM's very, very good. Like Opus is very, very good at counting, hey, there's, whatever, 77 S1s on this project. And then it's like, hey, I've got 77 S1s. I have the zone of where this is projected. How do we harness that in to actually get the exact bounding box around the piece of equipment or around that? And those two together, because like you're right, yeah, like it's like for the estimator, it's like if I just use this, it's going to miss this E1 if I'm only like capturing this E1 up here as an example. But the merging of the two together is like very, very accurate at scale. So like, and for us, it's like still trust but verify, and I'll show you in the app.
Yeah, because like in a benchmark, these issues will, depending on how you set up your benchmark, could be irrelevant, right? They'll effectively just say how many E1s did you find, irrespective of the geometrical shape. And if there's 89, but you found 79, then that's your numerator denominator. But yes, you're right. Like I'm assuming because of the way you've implemented this, it's still 100% accurate. But from the customer's perspective, they're looking a little bit differently.
So we are.
Like, I feel like I'm. It's been a while since I did any geometry stuff, but in olden times, I had a little exposure to it. One of the things that I feel has always been really interesting working with LLM technologies as a software engineer is that unlike many previous technologies, it's actually like they're not 0 to 1. Like if you do like a vector embedding in a search, you're like, what's closest to this? What's the thing that's most like this? You always get an answer. Like if you ask Claude for something, you always get an answer back. How good it is, like, I don't know, but does mean that technology is very, very resilient to sort of slightly fuzzy things, right? That, typos and so forth, like get handled by the system like very cleanly. And so I'm just like curious, does that like, I can imagine in geometrical stuff, there's like, okay, like the path is there, but like actually, let's say it's two components and they end up being placed like slightly varying spaces apart, or like rotations or reflections just spatially. And so how does, if you've got this, it seems like there's like an exact vector based representation of sort of targets that are being recognized. Like, how does it, and maybe you say that's the secret sauce, is like it's like you've embedded in it logic to check reflections and these other slight variations and so forth. I don't know if that's I don't know if there's a question in there. How does it work?
It's a good question. It's a good question. It's as you said, the models and AI, generally speaking, machine learning is not 100% correct. The thing about geometric models, and specifically about the kind of data we digest, which is CAD information, it has an end. Meaning, let's say you're taking a picture, for example, of a parrot, right? And you're trying to teach a model, okay, this is a parrot, and this is another animal, which is a dog or a cat, or so on, so on. The model will always produce you an answer with a certain confidence level, right? And if you try to segment it in a computer vision manner, if you're trying to, let's say you have a parrot and behind the scenes you have the blue sky, right? If you try to treat it like, and you have to treat it like like an image, right? Pixel based. When you zoom in and you get a wavy kind of representation of the pixels, essentially, with aliasing and everything else. So you don't really have 100% accuracy or anything, right? It can reach like 99 point something, but not really, and not in the actual production environment. In geometrical models, and specifically in CAD drawings, there is an end, meaning there is an actual vector on the screen and nothing else. So it has to reach this kind of geometry to the 100%. Once it reaches that, there is nothing behind, nothing more. As you say, one picture can mean 1,000 words. In geometry, it's not. One line can mean one line. Two lines can mean two lines, and so on. Or a specific geometrical property and the constraints that it has with the rest of the geometries in the drawing, it always has an end. So this is the unique thing that allowed us to reach this kind of accuracy.
Okay. And so I don't know, do dimensions still show up? Like the last time I was like working on physical things, like you would dimension shop drawings, right? And so there would be a drawing, a PDF, like a construction drawing or something. And like the shape was what the shape was, but the written dimensions like were the source of truth. And I mean, this is one of the biggest issues. It's like one of the first health checks anyone should implement in Revit is like, are people overriding the measured dimensions? Because it happens where columns will be laid out at 5 feet in the model and people say like, oh, actually I want it to be 7, and they will type 7 feet in between it, such that if you measure like the drawing, like without referencing the written dimensions, you're not going to work against the intent of the drawing. Mike, is that like still, the dimensions still rule in the mechanical space?
Mike, I think you'd better answer it.
Yeah. So for us, it doesn't matter because we're not doing like linear takeoffs of ductwork.
Yeah. Okay.
In the application. So like I just need to go count the grill to say that there's 1,000 grills on this project as opposed to one grill on this project. This is where like, even for like a mechanical subcontractor that's doing the ductwork takeoff, they're still not going to really rely on the drawings for their most accurate takeoff for that specific reason, because the drawings aren't accurate. The comment I always had back, so I can reference Turner, is the mechanical estimator at my office in Philadelphia would always tell me about the penetrations through slab. Engineers never put the penetrations through slab as you're jumping from floor to floor. So he would add 6 to 18 inches on every floor and every takeoff, regardless of what his tool said, because he knew that there wasn't the pipe, there wasn't the ductwork, there wasn't anything that was there. So those were like kind of like these like things that he had in his head. And I remember sitting with him and doing this, and he'd have that fun pencil that you like set the scale up to, and you'd like literally just go, oh, that's 100 yards, and then you write it on an Excel sheet. So I think that challenge is still very, very hard. There's not an actual answer because it's not actually answered on the drawings. And when you sign a contract with a subcontractor, when a general contractor brings out a mechanical sub, they're not going to say, hey, I only have, 10,000 linear feet of 2x4 ductwork. That's just not it's not really a thing. You own drawing intent. So they're going to put fluff in that number regardless. So, hey, we're at 100 based on our estimate. We're going to bump it up by 20%. And we're going to carry that number. Because then there's also conflicts when you're you got to remember, in an HVAC world, as you're laying things, HVAC usually goes first because it's the biggest. And when you're actually installing in the field or when you're doing BIM modeling, that you lay your HVAC ductwork because you can't run electrical conduit through an HVAC ductwork. Then you go to electrical, then you go to sprinkler, and you go through that process. There could be changes during that as well, right? So you're actually linear feet changes because they switched the light fixture style on an RFI. The light fixture now is 6 inches deep in the ceiling as opposed to 3 inches deep in the ceiling. So now I have to actually spread my duct work out this way as opposed, now it's 8 inches wide as opposed to 6 inches wide and 4 inches tall. So there are all these things that happen during the coordination process. So to answer your question, it's hard to just give hey, I'm buying 10,000 linear feet of 2x4 ductwork because it doesn't actually do anything for the customer. So again, saying, hey, we're 100% accurate doesn't really matter. And I would guess if I was another software vendor doing if I was a Toggle leveraging this tool, I would have the functionality to add those fluff numbers in there, right? So, hey, we did this linear takeoff. I know that there's a turn up. There's 17 floors here. There's 17 ductworks running through the floor, 17 times 17 times I'm going to add 6 inches. So now I'm going to add additional X in the application, stuff like that.
And so that already comes into what you just said. It comes. We are reading what's written, right? The architect, the HVAC engineer, anyone who put those documents together, we're just reading them, right? This is our part of the flow. If you want to edit things up, if you want to add, as you said, 16 more inches towards each slab, it's your own thing. We're trying to provide you actual precise information and actual measurements of what you got, and then you could do whatever you want. You can call it also bid engineering. So our design partners, our customers, I'm speaking to them a lot, the actual construction companies, not the software ones. They are explaining to me a bunch of secrets in the industry, right? Who wins the actual bid? If everybody get the numbers right, for example, so what's the difference? How would you actually win the bid, right? Everybody has pretty much almost the same price as from vendors. Everybody has, if you have the actual measurements. So what's the difference? So the actual secret sauce in that is exactly that. You try to find vulnerabilities essentially in those documents, in those specs, in the bid to leverage that and win the bid. I have a great example. One of our customers, he was building a $50 million project. Okay, and it was a huge skyscraper in the Middle East. Essentially, the bid was everybody was bidding pretty much around this 50 million range. He figured that he can replace a bunch of steel beams with another material, and he approached the developer, told him, "Look, I am going to place my bid $10 million less." Or I don't remember the real number. Let's say $5 to $10 million. A lot, yeah. It's steel. It's a huge material. It's a structural material, which takes a lot of budget from the project. I'm going to place a $5 million, $10 million less, but only if you let me change the design. The developer is like, yeah, sure. If it's up to code and if it makes sense, why not? So we underbid everybody by between 5 to 10 million and pocketed another 5 just because he was so knowledgeable about this topic that he could do it. That's the real big money about construction. This is where GCs make a lot of money, or subs. They make a lot of money when they know how to re-engineer the actual drawing. Because essentially architects and structural firms, they are very good in theory, but they're lacking in practicality. This is where the big, good, knowledgeable GCs come in hand and come in play.
That does make me think
Okay,
that
so I feel it's clicking for me. Kamai offers, call it document intelligence. You enrich a PDF by making information about what that PDF represents more accessible. But there's another layer between interpreting that information and having the design intent, adding the fluff working from dimensions instead of from measured, like, linear quantities, that sort of thing. There's like another layer where the vendor that's working with either the customer that's working with Kamai via Claude or whatever, or the vendor that's working via the API is sort of responsible for that. Is it starting to click together? Am I getting it right?
Pretty much, yeah. It can be either through our product, it can be either through a vendor's product, it can be through anyone's product, because essentially it's a custom thing you do, right? Another cool thing is we are going to pretty much soon release our entire user interface open source. It's in a world where Claude dominates and ChatGPT dominate code, front end applications are not really scarce in a way, meaning it's just another wrapper around whatever we built and our core value, and that will allow us to essentially distribute our software much better in a much better way. You can install it offline and just use our API calls to do your stuff. And this is like the exact go-to-market and a business model of a result-based outcome. So you're paying for results essentially, not for a seat.
Yeah, it's like per call. Sorry, I feel like I'm playing catch up. Coming back to the example of the general contractor, trade contractor who proposed a design change and won the project and made a bunch of, like, everybody wins in that example, right? How does Kamai help that happen? Like, if that's the prime profit driver, those sorts of decisions and interactions is the prime profit driver for the general contractor customer. Like, how does Kamai help that happen?
Good question. When I heard this story from a GC, the guy was like 80 years old, still working hard, had like 60 years of experience in the field, right? And when it was even before we had a product or anything else. When we were, me and my co-founder were questioning him and trying to pick his mind and understand what's going on inside his head, we're like, oh my God, we need to replicate him in a computer, okay? But of course, it's much harder. It's easier said than done. And we figured, okay, the deterministic thing that we can actually achieve here is to get the actual numbers, because it just slows down everything else. If this guy had the exact numbers, exact measurements, exact everything, and now he's only focused on how to re-engineer the project to make the most profit, that's changing. That's like a different kind and different way to approach everything in general, right? So the big GCs, the big boys are hiring internal structural engineers. They're hiring internal people who are redesigning those bids, because they're bidding on billions. And if they're doing such a thing, a 10% increase on $1 billion job is massive for a company, right? For such a project. So it eliminates the time to do the I would call it the dirty work, right? To actually do the art, which is the actual estimating, which is the actual engineering, which is the actual creative part where you put your effort, and this is how you win jobs. So this is where I position Kamai. I eliminate the deterministic stuff so you could focus on the beyond.
Yeah, it's a great value proposition. Like, everyone complains about takeoffs. Every small business spends too much time doing takeoffs for projects that they don't win. It's an absolute no-brainer. For smaller companies that are doing, let's say, public tender bids, what do you think happens then? Right? They can't submit a non-compliant bid to, the municipality or like the city of New York, maybe. How do you think that shakes out? What do you think happens there?
Tenders are bids in translation from Canada land to American land.
Not the chicken ones.
So what do you think happens there, Elon?
I will give you an example about my company from a different industry. So from a software perspective, before, let's say a year ago, right? A year ago, I had a software developer full-time working on our user interface. Why? Because essentially the answer later on was the AI models were not as good as they are right now. Later down the road, about 7-8 months ago, I replaced and repositioned this developer, who is a very skilled developer, towards backend and the more important core jobs. And essentially, I hired a lower skilled employee, or even myself. I also did it a lot in front end. And actually, I do know how to code it front end specifically, but essentially it made it so much easier. And I just elevated a person to another position because AI could eliminate this friction point. AI essentially solved front end for software developers, right? And you can utilize those tools and elevate yourself to do much higher rewarding jobs. Same way it's going to happen in construction. If takeoffs are eliminated, you're forced to do other things, right? You're forced to do other creative things. You're forced to figure out, okay, now that the takeoffs are given, what can I do to win the job? And it's beyond AI, it's beyond other things. Of course, you will utilize AI tools and you will utilize other things, right? But you're just eliminating this annoying part that you shouldn't be even doing from the beginning. So this is the evolution of, I would say, pre-construction, at least from my perspective. A takeoff manager could become an estimator. That's like the actual, if you put things in terms.
Yeah, I think Mike has this talk track where the CM fee goes to zero. This is not necessarily relevant because we're talking about lump sum, but margins go down. But I actually do think you're right. It'll force people to become creative. They'll either have to vertically integrate and start competing on projects where they have an advantage. Okay, so I'm going to bring an electrical contractor in-house. I'm going to only bid on projects that have electrical, and then I'm going to go after the electrical subs margin on those jobs, and I'll be competitive there. And I think that's what's going to, it's going to force a lot of vertical integration from GCs to major subs, I think. And then you're right, like I think VEs as well. Like everyone's going to have to come up with really creative ways to save money, and hopefully the owner's receptive to that.
Yeah, but
I think
essentially it's already happening. Meaning you are, let's say you're a GC, you're doing bridges, right? You're doing civil works. You're not going to bid on a skyscraper and vice versa. So you are already filtering down what you can and cannot do, where you have the unfair advantage against your competition or not. You're already doing that. It just accelerates it and it makes it available to the smaller guys, right?
Yes.
That's the actual advantage.
Elon,
if a guy who knows a specific geography, for example, I'm a GC in America, in New York, in Long Island, I know exactly the environment, I know the ground, I know the vendors, I know the routes, I know everything about this location. Zero surprises there, right? I have an unfair advantage of knowledge compared to another guy who's living in Pennsylvania and bidding on jobs from his computer using Kamai, for example. If takeoffs are a given, right? If I'm just clicking, takeoff, bam, 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 sending a bunch of bids, a guy from Long Island doing a Long Island job would outperform me in any way, in like 100% of the time. That's the reality.
Yeah, it just settles back to like the person thesis, right? Like it's actually individual, like the people that are the biggest assets, as opposed to any like technology advantage that a contractor would have.
Cool. And then last question: where does Kamai go from here? Elon, what do you focus on now?
Our biggest focus right now is to integrate. So Mike has represented my product. So funny. He's doing that and not me. But it just shows how easy it is to use it and incorporate it. We are very heavily focused on creating essentially a very structured, deterministic database about the project and to digest all of the documents into one place, which means you could query and ask questions about the whole project as one object, essentially. So you can task from MCP, your LLM, hey, I'm doing this job. And then you start doing your flow as you would do in Claude, ChatGPT, or even through our platform or another vendor's platform. And this will provide us when we are, and this is a huge focus for us right now, a broader scope of cross-referencing information in between pages and in between more features like the beyond geometry, text and all of that into one place. Once it's a one warehouse, you can ask questions about. That's where Kamai is headed, to be this unverifiable information silo.
Yeah, that's exciting. So right now, like the symbol legend doesn't talk to like 5 pages further. Those things don't communicate right now.
Yeah, right now, the scope is really per blueprint rather than the whole project.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Once you do that, you can automate a lot. Obviously, you won't need to draw symbols. You already know them. That's amazing, Elon. This has been great.
Exactly.
I'm really excited to see where Kamai goes. I wanna have a conversation as well about how it could work. We're evaluating a few other API partners for takeoffs. We don't intend to build takeoffs, but we can keep that for offline. Thank you so much, Elon. We're gonna go offline. Mike,
Awesome.
Mike or Andrew, any closing words, or Elon, anything you want to say?
It's pretty exciting to do construction nowadays. I think AI and LLMs and everything else it enabled us to advance so far. We are 4 founders in construction. Andrew, you're pretty much a veteran. Mike, you too. So you guys know 10 years ago, this podcast would not be even possible, right? You would find 4 founders in construction tech in the world, maybe. And now it's a good time. It's advancing and it's awesome.
It's amazing.
All
Okay.
right,
We'll close
Thanks
it
for
there.
coming
Thanks,
on.
everyone. See ya.